You don't have any Stephen King?
You've got the shinin'.
You mean shiny.
Shh! You wanna get sued?
It's just your fate. You're that geeky Stephen King kid. There's one of you in every school.
Okay, that's him, that's Cujo, that's Cujo.
I was thinking along the lines of no TV and no beer make Homer something.
Oh, crazy.
Don't mind if I do!
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, hosted by two lifelong constant readers. We do non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of King's published work and take a critical look at his film and television adaptations as well. We also discuss the latest King news and check in with each other on our ongoing King obsessions. It's the podcast where all things serve the King. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod and follow us on Twitter and every other level of social media at TowerJunkiesPod. And while every episode will always be free, if you'd like to support what we do here and get exclusive audio content that isn't free, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for a ridiculous amount of bonus content spread across all of obsessiveviewer.com's various podcasts. Just for reference, you can get at the $2 level, you can get my story by story coverage of Stephen King's short story collections. I've done Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, and am just about to finish up Nightmares and Dreamscapes. And I don't know when exactly we will be covering Fairy Tale, which comes out September 6th on the podcast proper, but I am going to be doing a read-along thing on Patreon where I'll read about 50, 100 pages, however many, and then record my thoughts in progress as I read it. So that'll be at the $2 level on Patreon. So go ahead and sign up, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Get a ton of bonus content there. I am one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and joining me today, as usual, is Tiny. Tiny, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing awesome.
Nice. Are you excited for Fairy Tale?
Yeah, I haven't even really read a lot about it, so I'm going in pretty blind.
Nice. I know just a little bit about it, but I'm very much excited about it. Anytime we get new King stuff, I'm pumped for it. So yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. But today we are going to be continuing our coverage of Carrie by reviewing Brian De Palma's 1976 film, Carrie, which of course was adapted from Stephen King's first published novel, Carrie. So I'm very excited for this. It's part of our ongoing series on Carrie. Next we'll be doing the 2002 TV movie and then the 2013 movie. And then after that, I think the plan is still to switch over to Firestarter and do the novel and both movies. So yeah, and then eventually somewhere in there, probably I want to do Fairy Tale in between Carrie and Firestarter. So that's kind of the plan. We'll see how that goes. How do you feel about that plan, Tiny?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I have not started Firestarter yet, so. Yeah.
I read it a couple of years ago, but I haven't taken the plunge yet to reread it for the podcast. But yeah, we'll have to do Fairy Tale and then Firestarter. But yeah, we'll get it.
Cool.
Yeah. So before we get into our review of Carrie, let's kind of dig into some Stephen King news and check-ins. Yeah, Tiny, do you have any Stephen King check-ins? Anything recently that you've done or consumed that has a relation to Stephen King?
I don't, unfortunately, have anything
nice
that I can check in on. Yeah, I wish I did.
Okay, nice, no problem. I don't really have much of anything either, except that I've been reading Nightmares and Dreamscapes, of course. Check out Patreon, all that. I have also, well, I don't know. I was gonna say, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. That's basically it. Did you know, Tiny, that Nightmares and Dreamscapes has a story that is Stephen King writing a Sherlock Holmes story?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's called The Doctor's Case. It's basically a story where Holmes and Watson and Lestrade are Lestrade goes to Holmes and says, "Hey, I've got your perfect closed door murder case that's unsolvable and everything." And then basically the entire story is written by from the perspective of an elderly Watson talking about the only time he bested Holmes on a case and solved a case before Holmes did. And it's really interesting. I really liked it.
Nice. Have you ever read any actual Sherlock Holmes?
I haven't, but I when like Knives Out came out, and like I really wanted to just dive into like Agatha Christie and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, just those mystery writers and everything, but I never did. Have you?
I've never read any, no.
Interesting.
I'd like to sometime, I just never have.
Yeah. Yeah, next up is Sherlock Junkies, I don't know, podcast.
Oh God.
No. But no, I would be interested to read some, for sure. I know on Audible there's like a massive audiobook that's like all of the Sherlock Holmes stories in one big thing.
That'd probably be overwhelming. I'd prefer. Yeah. I think I'd probably prefer to actually read like a physical copy of that, of start like an actual Sherlock Holmes story, not the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. I would too. My whole thing would be that I'm a completionist and I'm insane.
Yeah.
And I would want that.
Well, plus I don't know how much there is of Sherlock Holmes out there, but I don't know if it's best to just like start at the beginning or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'd have to like Google how I should read it, I guess.
Right. It'd be kind of like the Dark Tower series. Like people have to Google,
right?
What order they have to read in. Yeah. But anyway, so those are our Stephen King check-ins, sort of. I guess this can count as a check-in. Today, I pre-ordered the physical copy of Fairy Tale. And I have the Audible pre-ordered as well, because, I want to read along with it while listening to it. So I'm very excited for that.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah. And so as far as Stephen King news is concerned, I've got two things to bring up that I thought were kind of interesting. This first one is a little fluffy. It's not really that interesting or anything, but I took special notice of it myself because when I was a kid, and Tiny, I believe I'm sure you had an affinity for Goosebumps, right?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh yeah. I count Goosebumps as being the stepping stone toward my love of Stephen King. Yeah, absolutely. So there was an article on Dread Central that the headline is R.L. Stine says this Stephen King novel is the scariest and admits to stealing its premise. And it was from an interview that R.L. Stine, the author of Goosebumps, he had given to Yahoo an interview. And also, interestingly enough, I think in the article it says that Goosebumps is like the second like best selling child like kid book series second to Harry Potter. Like, I didn't realize it was like that big. But yeah, but I thought that was interesting. So anyway,
is he still publishing new books?
He is. I don't know
under
if
the
he's...
Goosebumps title. I meant.
Oh, I don't know if he's doing any Goosebumps or Fear Street for that matter. I know that he's done some like adult novels.
Okay,
but I don't know. It would be really cool to meet him.
yeah,
him and Steve.
Right.
But anyway, so R.L. Stein's quote, I got a kick out of this. His quote from his interview with Yahoo was, quote, "One thing I do as a writer is that I come up with the ending first so that I can keep readers from guessing it. I do a complete outline of every book, but I always try to get the ending before I write chapter 1, because then I know how to fool the reader. Rod Serling and Agatha Christie were huge influences that way. I can't tell you how many Agatha Christie plots I've stolen. I think Stephen King's scariest book is Pet Sematary, and I've stolen that premise 4 or 5 times." And then it goes on to say, "Oh yeah, I told him. I've only met him once, and we had a nice talk. He accused me of taking every amusement park plot and not saving them for anyone else."
That's funny.
I thought that was charming.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the next article I have is from the Associated Press. The headline is, "Stephen King testifies for government in book's merger trial." I hadn't really heard about this. I don't know much about it or anything, but basically he was testifying that his publisher, Simon & Schuster, is coordinating to merge with Penguin Random House. And it's like an antitrust suit. There's like this whole thing about too much power or whatever. I don't know. But I just want to read like a couple snippets from this article that I just thought was really interesting. Stephen King didn't break any legal ground on the stand Tuesday as he testified against his own publisher's efforts to merge with Penguin Random House, but he did know how to please a crowd and even got the judge to thank him for his time. Quote, "It was a real pleasure to hear your testimony," end quote. The otherwise businesslike U.S. District Judge Florence J. Pan told the author after he finished speaking as a government witness in a federal antitrust lawsuit against the merger of Penguin Random House and Simon & Schuster, King's longtime publisher. And so what I really liked about this, and like this tickles me so much, is that it goes on to say, "But once sworn in, he was relaxed and happy to talk, and ever alert to how to tell a story." And then, quote, "My name is Stephen King. I'm a freelance writer." Like, I just love that that's how he identifies himself. Like, he's one of the most prolific and popular best-selling authors of the last several decades. And he's just like, "My name is Stephen King and I'm a freelance writer." Like, I just love that.
That's great.
Yeah. So basically, he kind of went on to testify and talk about how when he started out in the 70s, there were like a bunch of different like small publishing companies that were able to, get, people published and everything. And that has gone away. And now the publishing industry is kind of ruled by 5 huge publishing firms, and them kind of consolidating their power is really damaging to writers by and large. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Uncle Steve still got it. I don't know.
He does.
Yeah.
I'm glad he spoke out.
Yeah, me too.
I haven't read any details. I heard about the merger. On NPR, just kind of in passing. It's not like a huge story or anything, but I mean, I don't have an opinion on it necessarily, but if what he said makes sense to me, so.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is all of the news that I have. Anything else we want to bring up before we go into our review of Carrie?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, nice. So just as a refresher, last time on the podcast, we reviewed Carrie the novel. And Tiny, did you put that on your top 19 anywhere? I don't believe I did for mine. Did you? Do you remember?
I flirted with the idea, but I don't think I've officially put it on my list.
Gotcha. Okay. And so now we're going to be reviewing the 1976 movie by Brian De Palma. It came out November 16th, 1976. Plot summary is Carrie White, a shy, friendless teenage girl who is sheltered by her domineering religious mother, unleashes her telekinetic powers after being humiliated by her classmates at her senior prom. The cast includes Sissy Spacek as Carrie, Piper Laurie as Margaret White, Amy Irving as Sue Snell, and John Travolta as Billy Nolan. And I have some interesting notes. So when I do Anthology, my solo podcast about the Twilight Zone, I kind of compile my notes and compile the cast and crew and everything, and I look up what other like sci-fi anthology shows that they have in their credits, what other science fiction credits they have, any other collaborations with people from the Twilight Zone. So what I thought would be fun is if I did the same kind of thing here. So Sissy Spacek stars as Carrie. Interestingly enough, aside from like reading the audiobook of Carrie, the only other collaboration or the only other Stephen King work that I could find that she was a part of was Castle Rock season 1, which is interesting because that's so many years. Like I just find that interesting. Yeah. And Piper Laurie, who plays Margaret White in here, she only has like a Stephen King related credit outside of Carrie of funny enough, the 1985 iteration of The Twilight Zone episode called Grandma, which is an adaptation of a Stephen King short story that I believe was in Skeleton Crew. She did the uncredited voice of Grandma. And yeah, and Amy Irving as Sue Snell. The only other Stephen King related thing that she did was she reprised her role as Sue Snell in the 1999 sequel, The Rage Carrie 2, which bears no resemblance or likeness to the source material from as far as I can tell.
Right.
Yeah. And then rounding out the cast, John Travolta as Billy Nolan. This is his only Stephen King related work on his filmography, which I find interesting as well. Yeah. Yeah. Anything on that, or do you want me to go to the writer and director?
Writer and director. Okay.
So writer is Lawrence D. Cohen, who also did the teleplay for the 1990 It miniseries. He did the teleplay for the Tommyknockers TV miniseries, and he also wrote the teleplay for The End of the Whole Mess, which was a 2006 episode of the limited series, miniseries, whatever, anthology series, Nightmares and Dreamscapes from the stories of Stephen King. And of course, The End of the Whole Mess was adapted from, I believe, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, the short story collection. And he also co-wrote the script for the 2013 Carrie movie. So Lawrence D. Cohen, he has quite a resume of Stephen King stuff. And then Brian De Palma, only Stephen King work.
Oh, damn.
So, yeah. So Tiny, this wasn't your first time watching Carrie, was it?
It was first time.
Was it? Oh, okay. Because on your Letterboxd check-in, it shows it as a rewatch.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's the first time I've ever seen it. So.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. What were your expectations, and what did you think of it?
Well, I had pretty high expectations. It's it's a very well revered movie, and it's part of the King iconography, and it's really popular not just in the horror fan realm. So I had pretty high expectations going in. I ended up liking it, of course. You know, it's like I said, it's so well regarded. I figured there was at least something to that. Yeah, it was good for sure. I think the book is better. I was reading some of the trivia for it, and Stephen King actually says he kind of likes the ending better than what he did, and he thinks the movie is actually better than the book. So, that's kind of surprising to me. I did have some issues with it. I think one of the performances is a little over the top for me, and sort of took me out of it a little bit. But all around, it's a damn good movie, and I think if anything, it really launched Sissy Spacek.
Yeah.
She was like pitch perfect in this movie. She was so damn good in this movie. I really loved her.
Oh, yeah.
I actually haven't seen her in a lot of stuff.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
Yeah, for no particular reason. I haven't really seen her in much. But it's a really cool movie. It's a fair adaptation for sure. I think the parts where they rang true to the book were some of the important parts. So I give it a lot of respect for that. It was a good movie. I think I gave it 3.5 stars.
Yes, you did. And might I put you on the spot here for a second?
Sure.
Now, I want to remind you, you are under oath. January 26th, 2014. You were at home and you watched Carrie, 1976.
Really?
Yeah, according to Letterboxd.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why did I say if I did, I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah.
January 24th. I have no idea. I may have watched part of it and not finished it, but just counted it maybe.
Oh, yeah. Or I mean, it could have probably been something you just kind of watched in the background or something.
Maybe, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe I mislogged it because I actually watched the remake.
Oh,
that could have been the problem. Because if I watched it, I have no memory of the details because I didn't remember. I was watching it for the first time today. Like it felt like the first time. I've seen some of the clips and stuff from the 1976 version, the original version, and I know what's going to happen. So like it's a pretty well established story, but I didn't. I had never seen it, so I don't know. Maybe I just logged it wrong or something.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I know I joke, but you're not on trial or anything. Okay. But that's interesting. It does have a very specific style to it. And I will say this. I've seen it a few times now, and honestly, I like it, but I don't necessarily think I love it.
Okay, yeah.
It is some things that I really appreciate about this movie is that it is very brisk. It is a lean movie. It's like a little over 90 minutes, and it is fast moving. I think that is both a credit and to its credit and its detriment, because I think that by not necessarily cutting corners, but by speeding through things, I feel like some aspects of it were a little bit lost in the shuffle. In particular, I kind of think some of the characterization is a little bit lost. Some of the nuances of the characterizations, like, I'm not going to sit here and compare it to the book or talk about how they didn't go into like the mental anguish of Carrie all that well, because it does a very good job of adapting the feel of being that outcast teenager and the feel of being the bullying teenagers and everything, and having that sense of entitlement and sense of like self-righteous indignation and being like angry and not thinking of the consequences. Like, it has all of this stuff, but there's something to it that I don't really connect with as a complete piece. I can't quite put my finger on it. At times, the movie feels a little bit like there's some interesting things. I will go ahead and say it. I'm not terribly familiar with Brian De Palma in general. Like, what I've seen of his work, I'm fine with. I think he did Scarface, right? Yeah, I saw Scarface when I was a teenager and felt like I was supposed to love Scarface, but it was fine. But I don't know that I've really ever seen any other De Palma movies. So it's a pretty big blind spot for me, but there's a certain level of artistry in this movie that I kind of can't really make too much sense of. Like, there's such a a weird. Oh yeah, he did the first Mission Impossible. That's right. Huh.
The Untouchables.
Yeah. And then he's done a bunch of stuff. But anyway, there's this thing that I don't know if this is like a Brian De Palma thing or if there is a purpose behind it, but he does this interesting thing where two characters will be in the same frame in the foreground and background, but they'll both be in focus. So like, Tommy Ross will be in English class, and Carrie will be in the seat a few rows behind him, but they're both in frame. They're both focused in, and it's so weird and surreal. But I don't really know why. Like, I don't know what the deal is, what the intention of that is. And then there's some beats with the music that I'm just kind of confused by, because it has this ethereal, like kind of happy-go-lucky tone to it. That's almost dreamlike, which fits in certain respects. Like, it fits in certain times. Like, I think that the prom sequence before the carnage and during the carnage is perfect. Like, I think that is a perfect sequence. And the music fits well. It has that surreal, dreamlike quality, and it is heightened. But like, when the girls are doing like their detention in gym, and it's having this like fluttery, like percussive kind of music that's supposed to be like dreamlike and everything, it doesn't really mesh all that well for me. So it kind of seems a little bit weird in tone. And then the other big thing with the music that I know that it's going to be a big part of it is that the riff on Psycho. I had seen, I think somewhere, that Bernard Herrmann, who obviously did the music for Psycho and countless other things, I think he was supposed to score the movie, but he passed away like the December before production, or December before like this was made. So I can kind of see how that like sting, that Psycho sting is used in tribute to him, but every time it was very distracting for me. I don't know. Anyway, that's a lot of kind of my thoughts on it. What did you think of those things? Did any of those things jump out to you, Tiny?
Yeah, the music definitely jumped out to me as well, especially the kind of jolting violin riffs that were popularized by Psycho. And I was, again, reading the trivia. I can't remember exactly what it said, but basically, I don't know if it was De Palma or if it was the composer. It was basically just like, well, I had this idea for these like very harsh violin riffs, and like they did it and they recorded it, and that was, they were putting it into the soundtrack, and then they realized, oh, this is basically the same thing they did with Psycho.
Oh,
and
okay.
I thought that was, I wonder if that's true, because how could you be a director or a composer in Hollywood and not be familiar with the music from Psycho? Like, it's so iconic. that just seemed kind of like a weird explanation to me. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. But yeah, it's slightly different, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing, and it works. It definitely works in the movie. But I agree with you. It took me out too, because I was like, oh, that's Psycho. They're doing the Psycho music. That's weird. And they did it more than once. It's used it several times.
Yeah. And one of the more frustrating aspects of that is that it is definitely the Psycho music, but it's like, it's only like a few beats of it. So in Psycho, it's like that. I'm so sorry, listener. But like in Carrie, it's just it doesn't have like that payoff. It reminds me of the bit in The Office where Andy is singing along or singing like a cappella of the names of the people of the companies in the business park that he and Pam are in. And then like she tells him to stop, and he gets in the elevator, and he's like, "Oh my God, I need to resolve the rhyme. I'm gonna get a headache and everything." It's like, I had that experience. Like, you need to play the rest of it. Like, it's very brief every time, and I don't know. It kind of got under my skin in a not good way.
I found the trivia. It says Brian De Palma wanted a screeching music cue for the mirror breaking. It was after making that decision when he realized Psycho had already used the exact music he was looking for, but he went with it. He went with it anyways.
Wow. Maybe the thing that I read about Bernard Herrmann wasn't true.
That is true. I was also in here. You were on the money with that as well. Nice. So I wonder if that whole thing is just speculation or something weird.
Yeah. Huh. That's weird. Yeah, but I don't know. It didn't work for me personally. As far as the performances though, I think that's what really makes the movie for me. I think it's the most that's the aspect that requires the most analyzation, because like I said in the beginning, I think Sissy Spacek is like perfect. She was so damn good in this. I absolutely loved her performance. Yes. I mean, she runs the gamut of emotion, and she does it so well. Her body language is remarkably good, and just her mannerisms, and she just has that very innocent kind of puppy dog look to her. She's just adorable, and she just plays it so well. I loved her performance. And then, in the climax, when she goes bananas, she has those very piercing eyes. It's incredible what she can do with her eyesight, or her just the look of her eyes, because the gym teacher even mentions it, that she's her eyes are very pretty, and they are, but man, when she goes nuts, it's like scary when she goes full telekinetic crazy at the end. Yes. Her eyes are so wide and just piercing, and if you look at the poster, I'm looking at it on IMDb right now, they have a picture of her being crowned prom queen, and then a picture of her covered in the pig's blood next to it, and her eyes are just popping out of her skull in an amazing way. I just give her all the credit in the world. She was fantastic in this. Which is funny, because as I was watching it, I was like, again, I haven't seen Sissy Spacek in much, and I haven't seen her in something when she was this age. She's pretty. I mean, she's a good looking woman, and Carrie is not. The character from the book was more heavy set and had acne and all that stuff, and they talk about that in the trivia and everything, how that she doesn't really fit that mold. But like I said, initially in the first maybe first third or the first act of the movie, I was like, she really doesn't fit it physically, but she's doing a pretty good job. And by the end of the movie, I didn't care, because she was nailing it so well with her performance. She really stood out to me. But I think the other actors deserve a lot of credit too.
mostly Nancy Allen for being. She plays the character of Chris Hargensen. She was really just diabolical and just a horrific bully. She did a really good job too. So those are the two standouts for me. I think Piper Laurie is worth mentioning. She was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
She was over the top for me several times.
Is she who you were saying was over the top?
Yeah, Piper Laurie.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought she was a little over the top. More than a little, actually. Like she was a little just kind of too much in a few points, and I think she played it as sort of like a black comedy kind of character, and I don't think that worked. I give a lot of credit to Julianne Moore in the remake. I thought she was fantastic as Margaret White. I thought she did a really good job. But Piper Laurie, I think, just crossed the line several times. I think she was just too much. She wasn't terrible. Like I think she did a good job in a lot of the scenes, but especially towards the end, she was just a little too much for me.
You know, that's really interesting because you're right. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and Sissy Spacek was nominated for Best Lead Actress. Right. Also, interestingly enough, they both lost to actresses from the movie Network. So Faye Dunaway and Beatrice Straight. But you know, that's really interesting because I did not feel like Piper Laurie was over the top in my opinion, but I did feel like that element of the story kind of needed a little bit more fleshing out. Like I said, this is a very brisk, tight 98-minute movie, and what I appreciate about it is how much it really kind of dives into the, teenage like culture of the time, and it really feels like a lived in kind of thing. But it also feels like some things kind of get overlooked because a lot of it is subtext. There's a lot of subtext to the culture of the things, like the reason behind Chris wanting to pay back Carrie or get Carrie because of things that she did and she's not taking responsibility for. Like, there's a lot of stuff there that's all subtext, which is great and it's done very well. But when you have Piper Laurie going like full-blown religious zealot, and everything there is pretty much surface level until the ending where she kind of reveals a little bit more about her backstory, it kind of feels a little bit lopsided to me. It kind of feels like, okay, we are existing in these two different movies, this high school drama and this religious fanaticism heightened, like kind of like you said, playing it like it's a black comedy kind of thing. And it doesn't really gel all that well with me as a whole cohesive unit, and kind of add to that the kind of weird differences in the music choices. It's a movie that I respect. I enjoy it, but it's not like, one of the greatest movies of all time for me, or even one of the greatest Stephen King adaptations for that matter. It just feels kind of, I don't know, incomplete, sort of. Yeah, so I don't know, but I do agree that Sissy Spacek does an incredible job, and just kind of how you pointed out the poster art and everything, just like throughout the entire movie, she goes from, she runs a full gamut of emotions, and it is to such a level that it's masterful. It is masterful, her performance. And I was looking at her filmography. I've actually seen a lot of stuff she's in. Like I have seen, she was in Bloodlines on Netflix, or maybe just Bloodline. I don't know. She was also in JFK. And Blast from the Past, which I enjoyed quite a bit, with Brendan Fraser.
Yes, I remember her from that. Yeah.
There was one that jumped out here that I was like, oh yeah, duh, but I can't find it here. Bloodline. Oh, The Old Man and the Gun. Yeah, with Robert Redford.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so the performances were great.
Yeah, sorry, there's a scene, I think it's, for me, like maybe the best tandem scene in the movie where Carrie gets sent home after she has her period mishap. And she gets sent home, and the teacher calls Mrs. White and tells her what happened, and she basically confronts Carrie about it at home, and she's like hitting her in the face with a magazine.
Yeah.
That was a really powerful scene, and I think both actors were hitting it out of the park in that scene. So again, I think Piper Lowry was over the top a few times, but she also played flirted with the line really quite a few times too. She was really good in several scenes, and like I give her some credit. I don't think she was bad. It's just too many times she went overboard for me. But I really love that scene. That was really good.
Yeah, that was really good. I really liked the scene at the end, which we'll talk about in spoilers and everything. But I do think that I liked her performance more than you liked it, obviously. But yeah, I can definitely respect it. It was pretty over the top in quite a few places. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The religious aspect to it, it's something that I think I'm sure we talked about it in the review of the book, and it's stuff we'll talk about as we go through King's entire work and everything. But his depiction of religion and religious zealotry, fanaticism in general, is some of the meatiest and best aspects of his writing, in my opinion, because it comes from such a darkness. There's such a dark streak with it. And here in Carrie, in the novel, it's done beautifully. It's done very well. And I think that is one of the things in the movie that is captured reasonably well. Like the complete chaotic nature of Margaret White, her just flying off the handle, as over the top as it can be, the way that it affects Carrie and the way that Carrie is terrified of her, and the way that she gains this upper hand over her throughout the movie is really, really good. Really well realized in the movie versus given what's in the book and everything. So I appreciate that. And I think that that's where Laurie's performance really shines for me, is when in those moments where she's, batshit insane.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Is there anything else before we go into spoilers? I do have one thing before spoilers, but anything else you want to bring to the table?
No, what was the last thing you had?
John Travolta.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is fair. I don't know. I'm going to feel like I'm going to sound completely reductive and kind of like an ass, but I don't know how much of this is John Travolta and how much of this is John Travolta as Billy Nolan. Like, I don't know how much of this is John Travolta and how much of this is Billy Nolan, but I just got this intense feeling when he was on screen where I was like, he just seems like the dumbest person. Like, he just seems like dumb, for lack of a better word. And I think that it could be either a brilliant performance, because that's what the character is, very dumb guy, jock teenager guy, or dumb, like, immortal teenager person. But I don't know how much of that is his performance and a conscious effort, and how much of that is, just John Travolta in the 70s. Like, I don't know. How did you feel about his performance?
Yeah, it's not, I didn't think it was particularly noteworthy. Another interesting thing about the movie, none of the male characters really stand out that much.
Yeah.
Which is kind of poignant. You know, I think there's some subtext that a person could draw about, you know, feminism from the book and from the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to really comment on it because I'm not sure even what I would interpret from it in regards to that theme. But it's of note in this movie that the male performances are pretty forgettable, you know, including John Travolta. But yeah, I don't know. I've never been like a massive John Travolta fan. Like me neither. I mean, he's fantastic. He's great in Pulp Fiction. I love him in Pulp Fiction. There's some other roles of his that I'm like, oh yeah, he was good. He did a good job. I like him enough, but I've never fully understood why for quite a while he was one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Yeah.
I never held him in that kind of regard, but you know, I think it's kind of hard to contextualize this performance amongst all that because you know this is his first movie role, and
that's right.
He was really young, but yeah, he could be over the top in some of his roles. So I really don't know how to contextualize this performance and really analyze it. I'm not sure it even warrants it that much because it's a relatively minor role too.
Yeah,
he's mostly just manipulated by the Chris character, but I think he also kind of I don't know if he's smart enough to realize that he's being manipulated.
Right.
He's for sure an idiot.
Yeah.
And watching their teenage bickering is frustrating, but also accurate because it's like, you know, so many teenage couples are like that because they're both dumb.
Yeah.
Young and dumb idiots, you know. But I didn't really have a strong opinion about his performance either way.
Yeah, I do appreciate also that the movie at least does some work in showing like the makings of him as like an abusive drunk. And like the book does a great job of showing that like Chris is attracted to that type of guy because that's what her father is, or I think, or what have you. Like it goes into the psychology of that. Whereas the movie doesn't really do that. Like when we see, did we see Chris's parents? Because when she goes to the prom, or was that Sue?
I don't think so. I think we just see Sue's parents.
Okay. But so we don't really see Chris's home life or anything, but we don't really need to because that's really not the point of the movie. But I do appreciate how they show him like hitting her. Well, that's a terrible soundbite.
Right.
I appreciate how they show his abusive tendencies and his pushiness and everything to show, I guess, like, because she is manipulating him and everything, but he's not like a good person or anything. So right. I don't know. I think that there's a little bit more nuance to that, to that couple and those characters than the movie really, in the version of the movie that the version of the story that they're telling in this movie warranted. I think that there's a little bit more nuance than what the movie was intending to go for there, and I do appreciate it for that. I will also say that Tommy Ross, played by William Catt, I think that he was fairly endearing. Like I said, that prom scene is very just like you feel like he seems like a decent person, and that's something I really appreciate about it. But I also kind of feel like that whole element should have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like he says like, oh, you know, he's being nice to her because she liked his poem and everything, but it's like, or his essay, or I think it was a poem, I don't remember. But anyway, because she liked that, but I feel like there should be a little bit more there than what there is. But at that point, I'm kind of nitpicking anyway. So
yeah, I think there could have been more too. I think it felt like he was actually, you know, having a good time with her at the prom, and you know, I think he originally approached Sue's idea as a bit of a chore, and he was reluctantly, to a certain extent, participating in it. But he's a little, I think in the actual prom scene, he's kind of surprised that she's actually a nice girl, and she's a person and has feelings, and he can have a conversation with her, and she's actually nice, and he's actually finding himself having a good time with her.
It's a good contrast. Sorry, it's a good contrast to Chris and Billy as being just outright kind of evil, terrible people.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think more so in the book, there's all in the book, we talked about it. It's so, it's such a downer. Like there's hardly any, almost no bright points in Carrie White's life. Like there's just, everything is just an obstacle and a hardship for her. And it's really, really difficult to read, and you feel so bad for her all the time. And there is the moment at the prom where she's having a good time, and she's having a connection with another person, and she gets to have fun, genuine fun, just organic fun. And it feels so good in the book. Just that she at least got to have a moment like that, you know. And I think they captured that pretty well in the movie, and I chalk it up to his performance and Sissy Spacek. They were good together. Seeing her, you know, she's, again, I talked about how she was never this ugly duckling thing who transformed into the pretty swan, but she is. It's mostly in her body language during that part. You know, she just feels relaxed. Her shoulders, you know, for most of the movie, she's like tucked up into her shoulder, you know, tucked down into her shoulders, and she feels so much more relaxed and calmed down in that moment, and she's smiling much more. It felt really good to see that, and even I really appreciated the in the climax the use of slow motion. I wouldn't have think I would have I wouldn't have thought that I would have latched onto that. I think slow motion is just too, I think a lot of the time it doesn't work. Or it's just kind of cheesy, or maybe a kind of a lazy filmmaking tactic, but it just really worked for me in this movie. I feel like it was sort of Carrie subconsciously savoring this moment. Interesting. And then when the bad happens and they dump the pig's blood on her, they continue with the slow motion, and the audio drops out totally, and we don't really hear the people laughing at her. It's all just emotive. I was like, that was really good filmmaking. I really appreciated the aesthetic of that. It looked really good, and it was effective. And, you know, I feel like it was pretty immersive for the audience to get us in Carrie's headspace with just how angry she got and how she reacted and just blew up. I really appreciated that part.
By far, probably my favorite sequence of the entire movie is just the prom sequence, all told. Yeah, I thought that was really, really incredibly well done. Yeah. Do you want to go into spoilers for Carrie 1976?
Yeah, we've already kind of spoiled. I've already kind of gone to the.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone knows this story.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe that's just me.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like you can't really spoil it for anybody. I think
really
pretty much. Yeah. So that's why I've said it before. That's why I waited so long to read the book and see the movie, because I was like, I basically feel like I've already seen it and read it because I know what happens. Which isn't a bad thing. It didn't.
No, not at all. Yeah.
It wasn't not special for me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we know the Titanic's going to sink. That doesn't make Titanic any less of a shitty movie. Anyway. But anyway, I do have the clip from the trailer on the board. So let's just go ahead and go into spoilers, and we can talk in more depth, because I do want to talk about Piper Laurie and Sissy Spacek at the end of the movie. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. Check the show notes for timestamps for whatever reason. But clip from the trailer, and then when we come back, we're going to be spoiling Carrie.
It's the night of the senior prom. The Bates High School gym is alive with excitement. Everybody is there. even Carrie White. The girl no one likes.
We're all sorry about this incident, Cassie.
It's Carrie!
And everyone makes fun of.
Free, Carrie! Free, Carrie!
The girl who lives in that creepy house with her crazy mother.
Okay, so spoilers on for Carrie, 1976. Tiny, something that I really, really liked about this movie. I feel like I've been kind of down on the movie as a whole, and I do stand by that because the movie to me isn't as great as it isn't as defining of a movie for the horror genre as I think it gets acclaimed as. But something I really liked about it is the way that the kind of final confrontation between Carrie and Margaret plays out. When she has destroyed the prom, she's murdered Chris and Billy, which we can come back to that. I had a problem with that scene, but and she goes home to her mother, and it creates this just absolute tragedy in it. It's almost like a Greek tragedy where she goes home. She doesn't like, she has experienced the worst pain imaginable, and inflicted the most horrific pain imaginable. And the only thing she wants is to be like with her mother, to be comforted. And she cannot give her that because her mother is insane. And the way that all plays out is just so painfully beautiful to me, even down to the stab and like that look that Carrie gives to her where she says, like, can't you hold me, or please hold me because I like need comforted. It is shocking how much emotional resonance it provided me and how painful it was. So I don't know. How did you feel about all that? Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't have the opposite reaction. But for me, I think that is the peak of Piper Laurie going over the top.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It was mostly her body language and just she's like doing this weird like animatronic like caressing of Carrie. It just felt really weird. I was like, what's she doing with her hands? Like, what's happening?
What do we do with my hands?
That's right. That's a little nitpicky and maybe a little silly to focus on that, but it was too much, and I didn't care for her delivery in the scene. I liked Sissy Spacek, and I liked the stakes of that scene and the structure of it. I thought that was all great. But it was really just Piper Laurie's performance that just cheapened it for me, or kind of took it down a degree or two for me. I also quick spoiler alert for the book.
Oh yeah.
In the book, she doesn't die that way.
Right.
She dies a different way. I won't say how, so I'll avoid that spoiler. But so this was different in the movie. Carrie telekinetically launching the knives at her.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I was sort of looking forward to seeing how they might, visually represent her heart being exploded in her chest, basically. Is pretty much what Carrie did in the book.
Right.
That would have been cool, but I think it was pretty creative, and especially the fact that she stuck her hands to the door jamb and she was in a crucifix kind of position that was just really poignant, and just visually a nice cue. I liked that quite a bit, but other than that, the other parts of the scene, I just, again, it structurally and all that, I liked it. It was just, I thought Piper Laurie was a little goofy.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I think I just latched on to Sissy Spacek and just the kind of overall tragedy of it. So, yeah, okay. I wasn't as disconnected with Piper Laurie's performance as a whole up to that point, really. So I think that maybe that's also partially why it didn't bother me all that much. But I do agree that the knife stabbing, the knives stabbing at her and everything were pretty remarkable. I much prefer the way that she dies in the book, but I think that this was a cool like visual representation of a way to kill her. And like you said, the kind of crucifix pose is very appropriate, and it's kind of good if very overt symbolism. But one of the things I kind of didn't really like, and I kind of wish that it had been doled out a lot better or a lot clearer throughout the course of the movie, was how she just suddenly like goes into this whole thing about how, you know, your father and I had sex before marriage and it was a sin, and then you were like I was pregnant with you, and then I promised like he would never do that to me again. And like she goes in this whole spiel, and I kind of wish that would have been a little bit more clear throughout the movie. In like a part of I wish it would have been more tailored to her fears and her anger for Carrie going to prom. Like, I wish that it was more demonstrated throughout the movie so that she could be like, this is what, you know, that boy Tommy Ross is going to want to do this and everything, which there's some of that, but the context isn't necessarily there for why she is so aggressively against that, aside from being, you know, a religious nut job. So yeah, I don't know.
I agree. It wasn't that conflict and that, you know, Margaret White's reason for having so much animosity towards Carrie was not fleshed out well enough, and it shouldn't have been kind of tacked onto that final scene the way it was. It should have been slowly revealed. Exactly like you said. I agree with that fully. That was a missed cue in the movie for sure. Yeah.
Yep. And it's a lot of information at a very, very big moment of the movie, and it kind of gets drowned out in the cacophony of the chaos, really. And kind of on that similar note, this is kind of a non sequitur, but the prom sequence. Let's kind of go back to that and talk about how there's this interesting, but I don't know how I feel about it, use of split screen that he does, where it's like one side is Carrie's face in profile with the crazy, you know, with her eyes just like screaming with rage and everything, and then the other half, like it's a divided, like there's a bar in the middle of the screen to where the other frame on the left side is just the chaos of the gymnasium and everything. And I felt like that was a little off-putting. It was a little bit weird to me. And I just didn't really understand the choice to do it that way. How did you feel about the split screen?
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I think it was maybe kind of a common practice at the time in the 70s. There were maybe some other directors who too. I'm trying to think of specific examples, but it's avoiding me at the moment.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've seen it before, not just in Brian De Palma movies. It's a little goofy. I feel like there's a better way to do it. I think moving the focus back and forth is a much better way to do it. I prefer that. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I didn't jump out as a really big negative to me. I'll put it that way, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. It kind of was a little bit jarring to me. Yeah. Go ahead.
Fun fact that I read in the trivia, in like one of the last, the ending of the climax where the house is collapsing in and everything. they're in the closet, and the statue that they show.
Yeah.
I had never seen that statue. I was like, is that, that's weird. What is that? Because it looks like Jesus on the cross, but he's got arrows shot into his body. I was like, which is also reflective of the way that her mother died. It's actually supposed to be Saint Sebastian. I don't know who that is. I was going to Google it, but I kind of forgot. So, but that just jumped out to me, and I was like, that's weird. I've never seen that statue before. So,
yeah.
But I like how it related to the way that Mrs. White was killed. You know, it was poignant. You know, basically the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Early saint and martyr. He was killed during the Diocletianic persecution of Christians. I thought it was interesting. That's really interesting. I didn't put that. I just assumed it was the J-Man.
Right.
So yeah, Chris and Billy's death. Visually and technically, really cool. Very, very effective. Like it is a very cool sequence and everything, but it happens so suddenly, and it's edited so bizarrely because like the car is moving at a very quick pace, and it's covering like it doesn't make sense that it's not hitting her immediately.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there should have been a little bit more build up toward that, because it is kind of, with a lot of things in this movie, very brisk, very, very quick. And I kind of wish that there was something else to pay that off. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel appropriate to have it just be a blink and you miss it kind of big moment.
I agree. Yeah, it was too fast. It wasn't even 30 seconds, and they're just gone. You know, there should have been more meat on the bone for that one. I totally agree. I don't remember in the book, is there any special emphasis on when those two characters were killed?
I don't think so. If anything, I vaguely think that it might have been a situation where they like saw her and were going to run her down. And it was more like more of a thing, which is still in the movie, but I would have liked there to be like a moment where it's like, well, we can take her down. We can, she's ruined it. Like, she's killed everyone. She's ruined everything. This is all her fault, even though we're the ones that did this to do it. But we just see them driving, and then they're flipping over and dying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was a little anticlimactic.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because this movie predates a lot of things. Like it predates Halloween, which had PJ Souls in it as well. PJ Souls played Norma in this, which is also interesting because this movie, like the kind of reverence that it has for Psycho is very, very apparent. Like, the high school is Bates High School. PJ Souls' character is Norma. The music. And throughout the movie, I was thinking like, okay, yeah, that's it. We get it. You guys, you like Psycho. Hitchcock is a master filmmaker. Like, we get it. Quit like ripping him off technically. But something, and even in the way that Piper Laurie holds the knife and swings it down is very much like shower scene.
Definitely.
Yeah. And what I really, really like about that, as much as you can kind of pinpoint it like I just did 45 seconds ago about it being ripping off Psycho, they do kind of coexist in a very interesting way. It's about a young person who has not developed properly because they're overbearing parents, and their parents have this control over them, and that causes them to lash out in a violent thing, in a violent way, and violent means, and have this fractured mental state. And I really like that kind of like viewing both of these movies as kind of similar to each other in that respect. So it kind of takes away some of the ripoff quality, but it still is a little bit overbearing in the homage department.
Yeah, I agree. That didn't jump out. I kind of forgot about the, I didn't really connect the Norma thing, and then I didn't even note the name of the high school until I saw the trivia.
Honestly, me neither. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't jump out to me as much. But now that you say that, it's totally there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something else I was going to bring up, but I can't remember what it is. Anything else we haven't touched on that you want to touch on in spoilers?
The only thing I wanted to say was I would have liked to see, I don't know if this was because of budgetary reasons or what, but I would have liked to see more of the town destruction.
Yes.
Like her exploding all the water, the fire hydrants. And doesn't she blow up a gas station?
She does. Yeah. Right.
That would have been, that would have been so much more fun to see. And then, it would have been more of an even bigger event in that regard. But it wasn't bad. I'm not, I understand it was a lower budget movie and stuff.
Yeah.
So Stephen King loves this ending.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say, is that this predates like Halloween with PJ Souls, but it also predates Friday the 13th, which has like that same ending. The kind of like the standard horror movie ending where something comes up and shocks you and everything. Yeah. I didn't really care about this ending like at all. Yeah. And I feel like Sue Snell gets kind of the short shrift. Yeah.
I like that. I like her conclusion in the book better.
Me too.
For sure. The ending I was more talking about was Carrie bringing down the house on top of them.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Which I think it's cool, and I don't dislike it. But I really liked I guess catharsis would be the word, or the therapeutic nature of the ending, where she has the Vulcan mind meld with Sue Snell and sees that someone was genuinely nice to her. Because she could have been thinking the whole time that her and Tommy set her up for this, even though they didn't. And in the movie, she very well may have died thinking that. Yeah. But she has that nice cathartic point in the book that I really liked, and it was so touching and just heartfelt, and I liked that part of the book. And so I was kind of missing it in the movie. I do think her bringing the house down is really cool. And it leaves a mark on the town. I think that's really neat. But I don't dislike it, but I kind of would have liked to see the Carrie bring the house down on her mother, and then go kind of die in the street and have that moment with Sue. That would have been pretty poignant in my book.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I honestly kind of forgot about the kind of Vulcan mind meld thing from the book. Yeah. And yeah, that was sorely missed now that you say that, because it's something that really in the book really does a great job of completing Carrie White's arc and giving her this. It is really, really solidifying the tragedy of Carrie White. And without it in this movie, the tragedy kind of becomes, sort of rightfully so, it becomes the tragedy of the mother and son, or mother and daughter. And that's appropriate. It works well. It's fine. But I think that the sort of absolution that she gets out of it in the book, the kind of that level of understanding that she has in her final moments is very much important to the arc of the character. And that is very much not present in the movie. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, again, not a bad ending, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else really. Yeah. Would this be on your top 19 Stephen King adaptations list?
I feel like it should be, because again, it's so well regarded by so many people. But kind of to your point earlier on, I don't know if I hold it in the same regard as other people do.
Yeah.
I think Sissy Spacek as Carrie White is, like I said, pitch perfect. I love that performance, and she was amazing. And for that reason alone, I'm very tempted to put it on there. And revisiting it, I might do that. I'll flirt with it, kind of like I did with the book. I'm not sure if I want to officially make any changes yet, but it could make its way on there just because of Sissy Spacek. Nice.
Unfortunately, it's not going to make it on my top 19 adaptations list. But I do appreciate it, even if I can't connect with it the way that most people can connect with it. It seems. I do appreciate some of the filmmaking techniques, definitely some of the performances and the overall mood of it. Just as a complete unit, it doesn't really work for me or gel with me as well as it could, which, that's my cross to bear, but whatever. Have we sufficiently talked out Brian De Palma's Carrie?
Yeah. What rating did you give it?
Oh, I rated it 3 stars.
3 stars. Okay. Yeah, I gave it 3.5. So
nice. Which, by the way, listeners, if you want to follow us on Letterboxd, go to letterboxd.com/obsessiveviewer and letterboxd.com/obsessivetiny. By the way, while we were talking, I did look at your Letterboxd, Tiny, and you never logged the 2013 Carrie. So the January 26th, 2014 must have been that one.
I think it was.
So, yeah. So I'm not gonna swatch you like I had planned on it. That's
nice.
Dark. But yeah, anyway, do we have anything else, or should we close things up?
I think we should bring the house down.
All right. Nice. Alrighty. Well, that is our review of Carrie from 1976. Let us know what you thought about it. And yeah, we're going to next time on the podcast, which should hopefully be sooner rather than later. We'll see. We're going to be covering the 2002 TV movie Carrie. Made by what's his name? Oh my God, I can't remember his name.
I don't know.
Yeah, Brian. I don't know, but anyway, we're gonna be doing that. And, off to a great start with that one. But no, the plan is to do the 2002 TV movie Carrie, and then do the 2013 Carrie movie. So look forward to that. In the meantime, check out Patreon. You can become a patron. $2 per month is probably the best option, because that gets you all the book and TV and movie reactions and all of that. So check that out, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And like I said, I'm going to be covering Fairy Tale when it comes out, so on the $2 per month level. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and play us out. Once again, check out all of our stuff. Check out our other podcasts. Check out Obsessive Viewer. Check out Anthology. So having said all that, Tiny, it's been a pleasure. And long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. I gained kind of a new appreciation of this story this time around, but mostly because, again, that narrative structure, the way that King spins his tales is always really, really interesting to me, especially when he does these things like he does in Crouch End, where it has this interesting, like, not necessarily competing narrative, but it's this kind of filtering back and forth, like in the timeline. So what we have here is Doris and Lonnie are in London, and something happens, and we get this kind of like 3-tiered narrative device where we have the police officers in the precinct, or whatever it's called over there. We have the police officers talking, and it's after the fact. It's after everything's happened. After Doris, I think was her name. I literally just said it. But anyway, we have the we have the police officers talking, and they have their own little thing. They have their own little kind of inner plot threads and everything, and backstories and all of that. And then we get this, yes, it's Doris. Okay. And then we get the detail of what happened. And it's such an interesting...
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.